Hey folks, Ru Campbell MVP here for ThreatScape. And Entra Global Secure Access, which is part of Entra Suite, is a huge new venture by Microsoft into the realm of secure service edge networking. In this episode, to kick off our new season, Ami Barayev, who's a principal PM in the Entra team, he's going to share loads of juicy details about global secure access. We're going to talk about how it protects against things like token theft. We'll talk about how it differs specifically from conventional VPNs, some of the insights into the attack surface reduction it provides there, and we'll get some real world scenarios that you can implement too. So let's jump in. So Amy, what's that first aha moment, that first light bulb moment that customers have that goes off when they see global secure access and they start getting some value out of it?
So basically, global secure access, and before we jump into the details, let's just bring our audience that the scope or the context. What is GSA, Global Secure Access, what we're doing? So global secure access is a new product that we introduced like a few months ago to GA. And it's part of the SASE or SSC discipline. SASE stands for Secure Service Access Edge, and it's basically something that Gartner was introduced to the market in 2019, let's say 6 years ago, and it's basically a consolidation of consuming security services in one hand and access in other hand. So basically, this consolidation is something new, and we see a lot of vendors in this space. The main thing that SASE provides is that it's based on the discipline of zero trust network access. And when I'm saying zero trust network access, it means that basically I don't want to trust anyone, which means it doesn't matter if it's a user on-prem in the organization or if it's a remote user. I want to inspect and validate each user and each connectivity to a different application or different assets that I have. So in essence, the entire ZTNA approach is around identity. And this is what we did. So if you will see on the competition in the market today within this SASE or SSC, you will see a lot of big names out there. Each one started with a different starting point. Some started as the next generation firewall and introduced SSC capabilities. Others started from CASB. Others started from a secure gateway. But in essence, if the entire challenge is around identity, what's the best way to deal with it other in an identity-centric system? And this is what we did. Global Secure Access is part of Entra ID. Entra is one of the biggest IDP services out there. And what we did is we combine or we integrate in one hand the control plane of identity or identity control plane and the access part. So together we can provide an identity-centric solution, which means that if I will zoom into one of the things that we are very proud of, because it's identity-centric and because of the problem around identity, let's use what we are doing very good and know that our customers appreciate it, which is the conditional access engine policy. The conditional access engine policy is very powerful because it's a centralized place where you can control all your users, all your applications, all different resources. And now with the SSC part, we can integrate it together. So it doesn't matter where is the user, what is the application, everything is configured in a one centralized location. But on top of it, we can introduce also some additional signals and additional attributes so we can validate and monitor the user activities and not just grant access to a user, to specific user, to a specific application, but we can do it, we are doing it in a real time or in dynamic way. On top of it, since the solution is part of Entra, we also did some integration with other identity objects. For example, governance. Let's assume that we have now an employee that is onboarded and we need to grant him some access to assets, and then this employee moves to a different place in the organization, and we need to change his grant of grants. And when he's offboarded, we also need to deal with it. So by having a consolidated approach for all the identity aspect of the solution, this is something that we build with the global secure access.
Right, that's really interesting because, you mentioned straight away there, Entra, one of the biggest cloud-based identity platforms out there, probably the biggest in terms of the enterprise B2B space. I don't know the numbers, but that's just what my gut kind of tells me. And you look at things like Entra Suite coming along, where You've got identity governance and things in there, and it's almost a bit of a cliche at this stage, but identity being the new security perimeter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is really kind of, and I'm interested in what your experience has been bringing it to market, actually. It really is something that's, I'd almost say it's brand new in a way, right? Whereas kind of historically, if we look at Entra or Azure AD, that's the identity play. That's the identity platform that Microsoft provides. All of a sudden, we've got this thing that kind of latches on to the identity and it says, well, you know what? There's network security implications here as well. How has that journey been for you guys of bringing it to market, but then also telling the story that you just told me, as far as it's unique, right? Insofar as we won't name other names, but the other competitors out there, they come from network backgrounds. You guys are coming at it from an identity background.
Yeah. So we see that because, the entire challenge is around identity with zero trust. How you identify users, assets, application, resources, how you grant access in a modern way, how you monitor this access even after it's been granted. So this is one of the things that we did. We also provide like a different services to ease, the onboarding of new customers to this solution. So, we start with the main like VPN replacement scenario. Okay, so if until now the concept was that as long as you are in the organization, you are protected. And if you want to consume local application or even consume the internet, if you will go through the corporate network with all the security stack, you are protected. And if you are a remote user, you can open VPN to the organization and you can access a private application or even go through the internet, and everything is go through this infrastructure. What we saw that one of the key selling points to promote the GSA is to start with the basic VPN replacement scenario. We know that a VPN is prone to a lot of threats, because if now a machine is compromised and a user is able to VPN the organization, so we're able to see all the assets and all the application, everything that is behind this VPN. And as I mentioned, it's all about trust, zero trust and identity protection. And with GSA, we can now provide access not to a user to a network, but a user to a specific application. And it doesn't matter if the application is located on-prem or in the cloud or a cloud application, but for the sake of the VPN replacement, it's like the classical use case of to provide a very simple solution. So what we need to do, you need to deploy an agent that we have on a machine. It can be Windows machine, mobile devices, or even Mac and iOS devices. We're opening a micro tunnel directly to the assets. We have, of course, run through our GSA, which is a global edge of solution that is run on Azure all over the world. So everything is go through our cloud solution. If we're talking about applications that are located on-prem, you need to deploy a small connector. This connector is communicating with our service edge. Once you define all of that, now you can set up the policies accordingly with the conditional access to grant the user access to specific application. Okay, and if this is and this is very important, because we saw cases where the applications may be a legacy application with some all the authentication protocols like Kerberos and NTLM. How you provide a secure and modern connectivity to such application without now changing dramatically the application behavior. So using GSA with the architecture that I just mentioned, you can enable now modern authentication and modern capabilities to interconnect such user to this specific application. And this is what we did, and this is what we saw, that the majority of our customers, that when they started their GSA journey, they started with the VPN replacement, and so because it's very powerful and also based on the application proxy, which is another solution which is already in the market for many years. So we just improved it, so it now support not just web application, but also any application. So you can now basically provide conditional access and modernize protocols with GSA to protect this legacy application. So this is the first step. The second step, and let's assume that you're happy with the connectivity and the performance and everything, and now you want to provide also internet access connectivity, which means that you can provide your remote users access to the internet which will go through the GSA service, but it will be secure, which means that we will monitor all the traffic that goes to the internet. We will make sure that no malware will be downloaded to the machine. We will block any access to malicious website. You can also set policy in terms of productivity. For example, I don't know, you want to block access to social network website during work hours. So any content filtering is part of the solution. And I think that we are going to introduce more and more features and capabilities and security capabilities around internet access. But all in all, I think that the journey will start with private access. Afterward, it will move to internet access. And on top of that, we have in the suite some additional capabilities to complement the experience. I mentioned before the governance, what you will do when a new employee will onboard. We have a lot of customers, for example, I met one that told me that every month they onboard 1,000 new employees. Now consider the effort that an admin needs to do in order to onboard a new employee, and we need to do it 1,000 times a month. Okay, you need to send him all the credential, access criteria, the packages, total group. So with the governance, you can automate it, all of this operation. So if user on board and off board, everything would work automatically. On top of it, we also have the Entra ID protection and the verified ID, which is other complementary solution within the Entra suite. But all in all, I think that it's a very powerful suite in terms of capabilities, but also in terms of costs. So it's very attractive. I don't think that we need to talk about that, but it's very attractive compared to buying it, separately. So each one of the services can be ordered in an individual SKU, but as a bundle, it's much more attractive.
That makes sense. And you talk about costs there. You look at things like maybe traditional on-premises firewall appliances and things like that. The costs of these things and the maintenance and the overhead and the patching that all that goes on, that's an awful lot of a headache. Purely by the nature of this being a cloud-based service, that abstracts some of that away from customers and makes it a little bit easier for them. And it's funny you mentioned application proxy, because that reminded me, I was like, historically, you've got this idea that Entra has always been about quote unquote just identity, but application proxy has been around for quite a while. And like you said, it allowed those web-based legacy on-premises applications to be accessed over the internet, and you could secure it with things like conditional access and all that. Now we get those benefits for any type of app, right? So that's going to be remote desktop, file shares, you name it, all this kind of stuff, right? And so one of the things that kind of got, I was trying to kind of think of the best way to articulate this to folks when we compare it to that traditional VPN, right? And it's like, you can make a VPN secure, right? You can lock it down so that a user connecting only gets access to the specific resource that they would ever need. But I guess out the box, what you find with a lot of VPNs, they're a bit of a nightmare to configure unless you're specifically well-trained and know exactly what you're doing. I would say 9 times out of 10, you look at a VPN appliance in any given company, those things are wide open. You connect to the network and boom, you get access to the full internal network. It sounds to me kind of when a customer starts using global secure access, that's flipped on its head insofar as we have to define the specific resources you need access to rather than you just getting everything by default. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. We also see it from customers that already have these security appliances in their headquarters, and they want to stop using it because, as you mentioned, it's cost, it's maintenance. You need to define a lot of policies, and it's expertise and maintenance and patches. Definitely something that we see that with global secure access, and if customers are already using Entra ID and they already configure the application and providing all the SSO capabilities, and from them to migrate, even if they're using today the application proxy with the connector, the migration is seamless. So they don't need to do anything. So it's simple migration to consume now GSA. One of the main differences between the current application proxy and the one that we enhanced, as you mentioned, we can support any application on any protocol. It can be file share with SMB or RDP, TCP or UDP. It's not tied only to web application or API based. So everything can be now easily maintained, connected, and secure. And I think that the main beauty here that you can connect or you can introduce now with the conditional access some more modern authentication capabilities such as MFA, and you can introduce such protection without the heavy lifting of changing the entire application, from scratch. Definitely, tiring the legacy VPN, tiring the secure web gateway is something that you can easily consume with the global secure access. And I can share that we are working to enhance our portfolio. So if we will talk about, we'll zoom into internet access, where we are about to provide also TLS inspection. With TLS inspection, we'll have much better visibility for all the traffic that is going to the internet. With it, we'll be able to introduce threat protection capabilities, DLP, our own firewall, cloud-based firewall. So we have a lot of plans to introduce other capabilities in the future. Some of that will be in early 2025 and on, but definitely, I can see the roadmap, and it's amazing in terms of what we plan to introduce. But I think that if I can focus on, or at least what will be the starting point, to start the journey, it will be the VPN replacement with the application proxy. This is definitely the starting point. And I didn't mention, but we have also another capabilities which is the connectivity to M365 application. So with GSA, we can assure that you will get the maximum performance and the maximum digital experience to the entire M365 application if you will go through the GSA. And this is also something that we see that we talk with the customers, that they say, okay, I already have my own SSE solution. It's based on X vendor. I don't want to use one. But we say, okay, no problem. One of the benefits is using GSA that we have, we can live side by side with any vendor out there today. So it doesn't matter if you have Zscaler, Palo, or whatever, you can deploy our agent. It will run on the same machine. And then you, as the admin, can decide which traffic will be passed to GSA. So you can start with M365 traffic, okay? Or you can say, okay, I want that specific application will be tunneled to GSA. And because we have this integration, we can live side by side. So this is like a very good starting point to start assess and evaluate the solution. So it's like an easy win, for if a customer already have like a license, but he wants to gradually deploy it, this is like a very good starting point.
Really good point. And it kind of brings me on to one of the other unique things about GSA, maybe over some other things that are in the market, and certainly over having no equivalent of this, certainly over just having a VPN, for example. And that's the benefits against token theft and relay and just general token protection that you get when you use global secure access. It feels like almost every day, certainly every week, I talk to customers who they're kind of struggling with token theft insofar as either through adversary in the middle or through some stealer malware on their device steals a token and tries to relay it and use it elsewhere. Within Entra now, putting aside global secure access, we do have continuous access evaluation, but that's that's Microsoft's implementation of a kind of an industry standard, but that relies on the application being enlightened, right? So you're reliant on the developers of the applications to get ready for continuous access evaluation. Global secure access, just by the nature of having it, introduces a whole bunch of token theft protection measures, right? Could you maybe talk us through what those look like?
Yeah. So continuous access evaluation, and as you mentioned, the main point is to detect if something is changed in the access in the identity access of the user. For example, we mentioned before that ZTNA is all about trust. Okay, let's assume that I'm a user. I've been passed through all the conditional access criteria, and I've been granted access to a specific application. Now, let's say that my identity was compromised, okay, and someone stole my token and is trying to use it on a different machine. Okay, so using the continuous access evaluation means that we check dynamically and monitor in real time the condition of your session, not just in the beginning and that's it, because the access token that you've been that you granted as a lifetime, and usually the lifetime is around 60 to 90 minutes. Okay, so let's assume that someone was able to store the token and has now been able to use it. As long as the token is valid, they will be able to access this resource or this application. So with continuous access evaluation, we can monitor the condition or the characteristics of the identity if something was changed. If, for example, now we got a signal from identity protection that the risk score of the user has changed, or something in the condition, for example, I don't know, the admin changed, the user changed the password, or something in the identity has changed, we can trigger it. We can trigger re-authentication or revoke completely the access to this application. So even though the token is still valid, using the signal that we're receiving in GSA, we can trigger immediately re-authentication and MFA and ask the user to re-authenticate from scratch. Additionally, we have also the capability to detect if someone is trying to use a token which is being granted to specific device or specific user. Okay, so if we will see this token is now being used on a different device or a different user, it will trigger automatically an alert, and then you will be able to revoke the access to the second user.
That is very cool. So it's like, I guess so you've got two layers of protection there. You've got your continuous access evaluation kicking in, because I guess the client, the agent, is able to then communicate back to that Entra and say, hey, there's been a trust signal change, therefore I don't trust this anymore. Therefore, as GSA, I can just kill the communication, force re-authentication, stuff like that. And then the second layer of protection is we're actually getting that token binding to the device, right? Which is going to say, hey, if the actual device changes in any event, we can also force that re-authentication. So 2 layers of protection there.
And I think that on top of it, we have other protections. So we will grant access only for users that coming from trusted network, if the device is compliant, if the risk score is below the threshold level. So initially, we have a lot of criteria to grant access. Once access has been granted, we're using the continuous access evaluation to monitor the condition of the line. And if we receive a signal that something was changed, we can trigger immediately a revocation or re-authentication of the token.
That's very cool. And customers can expect that kind of protection across any app, I guess, right? This isn't just going to be related to Microsoft 365 stuff.
This is a good point. I think that it's currently tied to Microsoft 365 application, but I think that it will be also for any application. Let me double confirm.
Good stuff. Cool. So that kind of brings me on to a follow-up question that I think about is as I'm interested in what your experience has been as you're working with GSA and you're working with Microsoft, enormous organization, a lot of ability to push new products and things like that. What's your experience been like bringing a brand new product like this to market, right? Because put it this way, it's not just another version of Office 365 or something like that, right? This is brand new. So what's that been like for you?
So for me personally, we are working on this solution for the past 3 years now. Okay, so it's been like in a private preview and public preview for many months, and we got very good feedback from customers. So for me, working with such new solution that is it's this discipline of SSE is not new to the market, but we are late to this market. But even though that we are late and we came with this identity-centric approach, and we saw that the appreciation, from our community base and customers, and they really understand that, okay, we did something a little bit different here, and they also appreciate the fact that although we don't have like the full-blown suite of capabilities, they trust that we will complete everything a long time. But I think that, so we started, with in the previous stage, and we got the feedback, and then we modified the solution in order to bring value as much as possible, and then we focused on the things that are important to our customers. I mentioned before that the VPN replacement was a key factor in order to get the first deployment. Second, the side-by-side. Okay, we know that we are late, we know that there are competition out there, let's work with them. And this is something that we did. We also did something new that it was also been announced in Ignite. We said that our solution will be like an open platform. Okay, for example, if you want now to use like external or third-party vendor to provide the threat protection, you'll be able to do it. And we started this cooperation with Netscope, although there are other competitors in this segment. Okay, but you can buy the solution from GSA and you can use only the threat protection from Netscope, for example. And we also are a partner with a lot of vendors for the SD-WAN part. So this is something that, Microsoft, I don't think we are not going to provide like SD-WAN from Microsoft. So this is why we did the partnership with a lot of other vendors. So as a newcomer to this segment, we did a lot of things. One of the things that okay, let's be an open platform until we will have everything, from in-house. And I think that this approach, together with some key features that was vital to our customers, provide us a very good start. And then I mentioned also, although that some of the capabilities are missing, but will be, in the roadmap. So this is something that, for me personally, working in such a huge platform with a huge of customer base, it's a solution that is deployed like worldwide. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's so cool to hear you kind of talk about the platform play, because to me that's one of the things that just makes, on the partner side of things and on the MVP side of things, makes working with Microsoft so kind of fun, I guess you could say, insofar as it's the full integration with, I guess, third parties, like you mentioned. I want to say Netscope. I think it's Netscope was one of the ones you mentioned at Ignite, is we've got availability with, but also across the rest of the Entra suite. And so, for example, I'm thinking off the top of my head here, we just did an interview with Jeff Kazimer, who's an Entra identity governance customer experience engineering principal PM. I hope I got all that right. That was a mouth salad. So Jeff was, we were talking about identity governance, we're talking about joiners, mover, leavers and things like that. And it got me thinking how, if we compare like maybe traditional ways of doing VPNs and network access and all that kind of things, if you've got a joiners, movers, leavers process and someone changes from department A to department B, well, that's a whole bunch of manual work. You go away and you update firewall rules and all these kind of things. If it's all just managed via the security groups in Entra, and that's all automated through identity governance, that's a whole lot less work that the identity guys have to worry about, the network engineers have to worry about. And again, it's the platform value that you get by going into Microsoft 365 versus picking out lots of individual different ones. I will probably sound like a broken record because I talk about it all the time, but that's to me what's so cool about working with 365.
Yeah, definitely. And I see it also that with the Entra suite and the Entra solution, where you can control everything in one single place. And then I mentioned you can control the users, the groups, the application, the resources, the access connectivity, everything in the conditional access. And then across the journey of an employee, once he's on board, off board, and with the governance and with the verified ID that we didn't talk about it, but how you make sure that the person that is trying to onboard is really the right person. So there are a lot of mechanisms to have like a 360 coverage of all the journey from when a user on board until he is off board, and everything can be done in one single place or one consolidated place. And for me, working on the GSA part, so responsible for all the access part and how it will integrate into the Entra, this is what we're doing, and I see that everything eventually is like, it's like everything like it's connected. Okay, so you cannot have like now when we are approaching customers, so until now you need to talk with the IT admin or the security specialist or the identity manager. Now I see that it's a consolidate, and we see a lot of things that the identity person are also involved on security and vice versa. So it's no longer like siloed solution. So so it's like one persona that doing all. Or okay, it depends of course within the company, but we surely feel that the identity is taking much more like the attention.
It's a good point, because one of the things that you've always had historically is this, especially in larger, more behemoth style organizations, you invariably see the siloing of, you've got your end user compute folks, you've got your identity folks and your network folks, and they will work together, but they will quite often they'll come to heads with each other. And I guess as soon as you start working with Azure or 365, and I guess in a global secure access, you really get no choice but to be a far more integrated and cohesive unit, right? because all this stuff just kind of ties up so well together. And on that vein, if there are, I better make sure I don't upset anyone. If there are people who are maybe more traditional network security engineers who, I got my VPN and I like my VPN and it ain't going anywhere. What's the kind of thing that you would say to those folks to encourage them to consider something like global secure access as, look, I don't just want to tell folks do it because it's modern. They have to do it because it's the right thing for them. And so what is that reason for you?
So usually, such discussion will start with an example of how many security breaches were out there because of VPN. We know that this is like one of the weakest links out there. So usually in such discussion, or we have maybe the CISO or the network admin, so eventually it will come to this security risk. And you need only one security incident where your organization will be compromised, and then it's game over. So we want to avoid it, and usually in such discussions where we introduced how simple it is, to deploy now GSA to specific application. We can do the pilot. Usually we're starting with the POC where let's just onboard 1 or 2 devices just to see how easy it's to connect now a device, a user, to an application. And once they see that it's so easy, they build the confidence that now they can introduce more and more application and retire the VPN, they become now our promoters in the organization, because it's so easy and so simple to do it. And this is why we put a lot of focus to start with VPN replacement, because we see the value, we see how it can improve the security posture of the organization, and it just block a big hole in your network or your security posture in general.
Great point. I think it was the Colonial Pipeline attack. Someone can fact check me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think it was the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack. Enormously costly, but it all started because there was an outdated VPN or a VPN that didn't have an MFA or something like that, right? So, interesting one. I never really thought about it before this recording from the perspective that the actual VPN itself was an attack surface rather than just the stuff that an attacker might get when they get to the other side of the VPN, right? That's a really compelling argument for that. And I guess we should start wrapping up now. What's maybe one final kind of shout out that you want to give to folks regards to GSA? What should be their one big takeaway and kind of, I guess, their call to action coming out of this recording?
So I think that if our customers that are already using Entra, for them migrate, or implement GSA, it's like no brainer. And with the Entra suite, which is very attractive in terms of cost. So I think that the first thing that you need to do is just start playing with a private application, with internet access, get the confidence that you can improve now the security posture, provide much more capabilities to your organization. And really, I think that if you are already in Entra, so it's no brainer to start playing with it. And for new customers, if you want to evaluate a new vendor now and you want to play it side by side, by all means, it can work and it can provide a very good value.
Great point. No brainer, low barrier for entry. Mm-hmm. Why not just go away and do it? I love it. Cool, good stuff. Okay, Ami, it's been amazing having you on our little podcast. This is the first one of our new season, so I really appreciate you taking the time with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, thanks.
Okay.